This is the American Arson podcast, where our goal is to spark creativity. Whether you're a musician, an artist, a writer, or an entrepreneur, we're here to provide you with tools, tips, and insight from professionals and creatives that you can use to inform and inspire your own journey. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the American Arson podcast. Today, we have Jordan Baker from the Worth It or Worthless podcast, and Jordan also happens to be my brother.
Yeah, we definitely wanted to have Jordan on as soon as possible. He's done a lot of work for us as a band, as well as on his own projects. If you've seen any of our music videos, chances are he worked on it pretty extensively. And he just has a ton of experience in many other creative outlets, which we'll get into.
Absolutely. He's kind of like a creative jack of all trades. And so interesting to see.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to hear some of the stories that he has. And I'm looking forward to our first musical guest, even though he does have a musical background, which I'm sure we'll touch on.
Yeah, we'll dive into that a bit.
All right. Sounds good. Well, without further ado, here's Jordan. Jordan, how's it going today?
Hey, it's going great. It's going real good.
I see you have a Marvel video game cabinet in the background.
Just about to mention that.
Yes, I might have had like a quarter life crisis last fall and decided that I needed an arcade machine, and I went on like a binge of checking Facebook Marketplace and like emailing and reaching out to like friends and being like, do you have an arcade machine? And then I finally just bought one, and it's great.
Was it this specific one you were looking for?
No, I literally started out saying like, I want any arcade machine. I don't even care. Like our cousins moved into a house and they had one in their basement. And I kept meaning to like email them about it and like, or text them or whatever and ask about it. And then when I finally did, they were like, "Oh, we gave it to our church, but I don't think they're using it." And I know the youth pastor at their church because I'm a youth pastor and we're in like the same network. So I reached out to him. I was like, "Hey, do you have that arcade machine? And what are you guys doing with it?" And he's like, "Oh, you just missed it. We just threw it in the dumpster yesterday."
No, in the dumpster.
Like, no! Or whatever. They got rid of it. It was too late.
What does that one play?
This one plays everything.
Really?
Because I put a computer in it, and yeah.
Awesome.
Modified
plays a little bit of everything.
Cool. Well, that ties into kind of what we wanted to start the conversation off with was the podcast that you've been working on for been about a year now, or a little more than that.
We'll be 2 years next month, coming up on 50 episodes.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And for somebody who doesn't know, you want to give a brief explanation of what your podcast is all about?
Yes, the podcast is called Worth It or Worthless, and the basic premise was initially, I have a friend, Dan, who is a video game collector, and he has like a gazillion video games, retro video games. And I like retro video games. Like, we grew up playing retro games. Mm-hmm. They weren't retro, they were just games.
Yeah, because that makes us retro now.
Yeah. I'm not a collector at all, and I really don't know a lot about these games. Like, I grew up with them, but like I'm not like super deep into it. So the premise was a guy who's super deep into it and a guy who doesn't know a whole lot about it but likes playing them get together, play these old games, and then talk about, are they worth the crazy prices that retro games sell for today?
Yeah.
And that's the basic premise. A lot of times it's basically me saying, no, of course it's not worth it. This game is garbage. And my friend saying, of course it's worth it. And he just had a terrible time for 3 hours playing this game, and he's trying to justify why you should spend $30 on this game. So
he clearly has an emotional attachment to a lot of the games that you guys play.
Yeah, Which I can relate to because whenever we play a game that was a big one in our family, like we played NFL Blitz, which
Yep.
was a huge game in our family, or this next episode that we're working on is Pokemon Blue, which is probably the game that I've played more than any other game or beaten more than any other game.
Mm-hmm.
And for those ones that I have an emotional attachment to, it's really hard to separate the nostalgia from what they're actually worth. So I can understand.
Yeah. So was it your idea to get the podcast going, or was that Dan's idea, or a little bit of both, or how did that get started?
No, so I very rarely am an ideas person. I like to make things happen, which is good for Dan and I's relationship because he's an idea guy and he's always texting with me. I woke up this morning to text from Dan's with ideas, and I usually am like, all right, I'll go along with it. So this is not the first endeavor. Dan just recently graduated. He went back to school and got a degree in game development,
Oh,
and
awesome.
so. I do some pixel art and chiptune music, so he's roped me into helping him out on a few games that he's been working on, and he's always got ideas. So I usually just get dragged along on other people's things, which is sort of what happened when I was in a band too. It's like my older brother's in a band. I want to be in a band, and so
Yeah.
then
Yeah, I think
that's
I
kind of
just
just
it's-
pretty much most things that happen. I just go along with whatever idea somebody else came up with.
but you did design your own game and do all the music for it, and it was pretty
Yeah,
awesome.
one time,
Yep.
never again.
Uh,
Never again.
do you want to tell everybody what that game was all about?
I I created an iPhone game called Noah's Bark, like Noah's Ark but with a B, and the premise was that you were Noah and you had to protect your lumber supply from a horde of beavers. And it was basically like Missile Command, if you guys remember the old school like
Yep.
70s arcade game Missile Command, where all the beavers are coming down and you have to tap them and you're throwing rocks at them and killing them. And it was fun. I had no clue what I was doing. I do not know how to code anything, so it was mostly me just copying and pasting bits of code from other people's things until it worked. My favorite part was making the chiptune soundtrack. We made like a 5 or 6 song EP of chiptune like old school hymns,
Yeah.
and so that was my
I
favorite
think
part.
people can still find that online if they want to go listen to it.
Yeah, if you go on Spotify and look up Noah's Bark EP or my name, Jordan Dean Baker, it'll pop up there.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Yeah, if you've ever just really had a hankering for chiptune versions of old hymns, he's got you covered there. So
If you want to hear a halftime breakdown in the middle of the Battle Hymn of the Republic, I got you covered.
there's somebody who woke up last night just like, man, I just need to hear chiptune Battle Hymn of the Republic real bad today.
Yeah.
That's cool. So then did Dan or did you kind of realize that there was a niche out here for this type of a show, or was it just something you guys were like, well, we're gonna do it, we don't really care if anybody likes it or listens to it, or how did you think that it would be something people were interested in?
Yeah, no, we didn't really think anybody would listen to it. We, it was a good excuse for us to get our wives to let us hang out for like 4 hours and play a video game.
Hang out and
So,
talk about video games.
yeah, so now, we had been friends for a long time. Dan and I actually worked together at Taco Bell when I don't know if I was in high school or
Nice.
early college. So that's where we met. And then we hung out a lot, and I had moved away and had come back, and it's just hard when you're an adult to make time to hang out with your friends. But when you have something like this, and every 2 weeks we have to hang out for at least a couple hours to play some
Have
games and
to.
record a podcast. No, I
Right.
mean, like it's a great reason to get to hang out with your friends. So we didn't think anybody would listen to it, and it kind of like took off. I do creative media stuff and social media, and so I made an Instagram page for the podcast, and it started out with us like trying to post stuff about our podcast which nobody cared about, and then I started posting just like retro game stuff, and lots of people cared about it, and we have like almost 10,000 followers on the Instagram, which I know isn't like huge, but is huge for
Oh yeah.
us because
Oh,
we don't have
absolutely.
any. So from that, like people have started listening to the podcast, and yeah, we have like a a decent sized audience, and I don't know why people like to listen to us talk about video games, but apparently some people do.
I think like you hit that nail on the head of just like finding a niche that like it's not oversaturated, at least that I know of. I can't think of too many other podcasts that, I mean, maybe one, I'm sure there's other like video game podcasts out there, but like not necessarily ones that are focused on the retro aspect of it. And then there's obviously a huge following for that. People have a love for those old nostalgic games, and then to have something that they can, you know, delve into that focuses just on that. I mean, it seems to be the way to go, whether it's you're a musician or a podcaster or a videographer. Is finding that niche, like, and especially with like social media, they always say like with Instagram and stuff, if you're able to find that niche and stick to it, whether it's aesthetically or topic wise, then you're more likely to grow. But it's, I mean, 10,000 after just a couple years of doing that, starting from nothing too, is impressive.
Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah,
crazy.
it's nuts with how many podcasts there are now and how many like niches are still not really being fulfilled. I don't know if you guys remember, there was like a series of books when we were kids called Redwall.
Yeah.
And the premise was basically like
Rodents.
small woodland creatures murdering each other with medieval weapons.
Yeah.
Okay. So I started like trying to collect those and like read them again a couple of years ago, and I was like, I wonder if somebody's out there doing a podcast on this. And this is like every single one of those books was a New York Times bestseller. Like there's a ton of people that read
Right.
those books, and there's like one podcast out there for Redwall, and it's not good.
Well,
so
there
if
you
anyone
go.
out there is like looking for a good niche to start a podcast in, maybe you should start the next huge Redwall
Evan,
podcast.
I think we need to
Yeah,
pivot.
well, we know we have one fan if we were to start that, right?
Yeah.
So what caused you to pivot on the Instagram strategy and start kind of posting, for anybody that hasn't seen it, it's kind of on this day, 20 years ago, this game was released, or here's an old ad that we found for Nintendo, which is kind of crazy to see some of those old ads that some of them would probably have never gotten approved these days. But what caused you to kind of make that shift?
Yeah. I think the thing with social media, and this is true regardless whatever your niche is, you just got to figure out what works and then keep doing that until it doesn't work anymore and figure out what your next thing is. And thankfully Instagram gives you the tools to do that. If you are checking out your insights and looking at the analytics and figuring out which posts are doing well, and then do more of that. So we started off just posting like stuff about this is our upcoming episode, or here's a clip from our episode, but it's like nobody knew who we were or cared, so it didn't really, that wasn't getting any traction. And I don't know if I just like stumbled upon like posting some old ads or commercials or whatever, and those just blew up. And so I just started posting more of those, and then it took us like a year to figure out our show is called Worth It or Worthless. The entire premise is we talk about the game, and then at the end we say, well, is it worth the price that it's going for?
Yeah.
But we weren't asking that question to our fans online. And once we started doing that, we realized like, oh, people want to share their opinions. They don't want to just hear our opinions. So
Yeah.
doing those kind of posts where we say, hey, this is how much this game is worth. Is it worth it or is it worthless? And getting that sort of interaction on there helped. Or like you guys mentioned, we'll take like 30 Super Nintendo games, put half of them on one side of the graphic, half of them on the other side of the graphic, and say, all right, you can only keep half of these and you have to get rid of them. And it's like people agonize over these hypothetical situations of like, I'm not gonna be able to play these games ever again. It's like, well, you're gonna scroll past this and forget you ever saw this. But for that 30 seconds, you had a very visceral reaction to having to never be able to play Super Mario Land again.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know, just figuring out what worked and going with it.
That's really cool. You said that Instagram kind of gives you the tools to do that. I noticed that you haven't been able to make the same amount of headway on Facebook and stuff. It's just a totally different world. And the differences between the two are so pronounced that you can see kind of where your crew of people is, and then but you're still making an attempt on both platforms, and
Is that
Yeah,
just
well, yeah. I mean, you got to be everywhere. So I know we have a Facebook, we have Instagram. I think our Instagram's just about to break 10,000. Twitter, we just broke 1,000 after 2 years. And Twitter, man, that requires so much more work.
yeah,
Like on Instagram, you just post something and people come and they'll talk about it. On Twitter,
Yeah.
it's like you have to be constantly involved in the conversation. And I've noticed in like the times when I go and I'm like intentional about like commenting on people's stuff and replying to people and like having genuine interactions, you see those numbers go up. But like, who's got time for that?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
Facebook is just, man,
it's
I don't
another
even know.
world.
The people that interact with us on Facebook are Dan and mine's friends who like know us.
Yeah.
And so like it's fine because I'm gonna just share it to my own page anyway. When it's something like I'm not doing that every day, but when it's something like I think is cool, I'll share it. And like
Yeah.
Facebook is just yeah, we all know what Facebook is for these days. It's so our parents can argue about politics. Not even argue, just have very strong opinions.
Very
So,
strong opinions and delete
Yeah.
anybody that doesn't agree.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So now that you've started a podcast, I think you've covered like every single corner of the creative sphere. You've done a podcast, you've done videography, you've done music videos for us, you've done photography, graphic design. You've been in a band. Do you think one thing just led to another?
I made a feature-length documentary.
Oh yeah, I forgot about
Yeah.
feature-length
True.
documentary. So filmography
Yeah.
as well. We can add that in. Do you think
Yeah.
that these are all somehow connected, or you get interested in one thing and you want to try the next thing, or what's the process that's kind of led to that?
I think part of it is like as we've grown up and as technology has grown up alongside of us, like you just realize that there's these other avenues to pursue the things you like. So I was trying to think about it because I knew you guys were gonna like ask me questions about stuff, and so last night I was just like trying to think about like how did all of this happen. And I remember when we were kids, mom and dad had an 8 millimeter camcorder.
Yep.
And I remember like taking that and we would like make videos in the basement. And I think I might have even started before that. We had a Home Alone. I'm just realizing we had a
Does
Home
this
Alone
footage
talk
still
boy.
exist?
No, probably not. I don't know.
Dang it.
We had a Home Alone talk boy. You remember that?
Yes, I
Evan?
do remember. I remember recording guitar demos on the Home Alone Talk Boy.
Yeah. So that was probably like the first thing in our house that let us like create a permanent digital creation or whatever. And I remember like recording all of these like comedy skits and sketches on there and I was like, I'm gonna play these back for my friends and they're gonna think it's awesome, and then that never happened. And then and then taking the 8 millimeter camcorder and making videos. And I remember when I was in elementary school, our aunt bought me this little digital camera that could do like stop motion and doing that. And then we got a computer that had like some like web editing software on it, and like you could make a website but not like publish it. And so like learning how to do that, and I was just always really interested in creating stuff. And then when I was in high school or maybe late middle school, I found out that a lot of times teachers would give you the option to write a paper or do a presentation or make a video.
Yes.
And making a video was super easy because I had all these years of experience with the 8 millimeter camcorder and then my little digital camcorder, which came with some video editing software. And I can make the most garbage video. But since most kids didn't know how to like edit a video and I had some editing experience, it didn't matter if my project fulfilled the actual requirements. The teacher would give me an A because they thought it was cool.
Yeah.
So I just kind of like stumbled on all of this. And then mom and dad just like letting us go out in the summers, and like you and I'm Evan's younger brother. I don't know if we've even said this. I'm Evan's younger brother. So Evan and my other older brother, Brian, were in a band. And like when I was like 13, our parents let me go with them on tour one summer.
Yeah.
And we got like a I don't even know what kind of a camcorder, a tape camcorder, and I went along as the videographer. And just like all of those experiences, and I don't know, just kind of led me to wanting to make stuff.
Yeah. I remember getting together after that tour, which our parents were awesome for letting. We had two 17-year-olds, two 15-year-olds, and a 13-year-old. on this tour, and our mom was calling us in campsite reservations because forget hotels. There's no way we could get a hotel. We weren't even old enough to get a campsite. So our mom was calling us in campsite reservations. And I remember watching those tapes back after the tour and we had to watch them all back ourselves first before we decided if we could watch them back with mom and dad. because we didn't know what all we had gotten on there, and I think also we weren't supposed to let them know that you had a girlfriend, so we had to make sure that we scrubbed.
That would have been a later tour. That was when I was 15, I think.
Okay.
So
who ended up being your wife? So
yeah, it worked out.
It worked out.
Mom and dad didn't know I had a girlfriend, and so Brian, our other brother, did not like being on camera at all. So anytime I would start filming him, he would just say, "Your girlfriend," and then he knew that I would turn off the camera instantly because mom was gonna watch it. And then I'm like trying to rewind and not rewind too far to like record over the show from last night.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's amazing.
And so then from going and recording and being a part of the touring experience, then you moved on to being in a band of your own.
Yes. So again, that wasn't something that I started. There was some guys that were my age at church who were in a band, and I was like, I want to be in a band. I had tried to start a band with my friend, and he played guitar, and so like, well, I'll play drums. I didn't know how to play drums, but we had this drum kit because our little brother got this drum kit, and he didn't really know how to play drums either. And I like took it over to my friends, and like we decided we were gonna make a band. That didn't go well, so I was like, well, what do I actually know how to play? Mom made us all take piano lessons, so I was like, well, we all took piano lessons. I probably can play piano good enough to be in this like 8th, 9th grade guys band at church. And they let me in the band. They had to kick out the girl who was in the band because they decided that we couldn't have that many people in the band. So they kicked her out, got me in, and we played for a while. It was funny because we played for years, like 3 years maybe as that band, but I think that we played the same songs that we wrote that like first year for all 3 years. We just like, oh, we got some hits and we don't need to write any more songs, man. We go to the shows that people want to hear the hits. We're not going to write any more songs.
They want to hear the classics.
I do remember the set list not being very extensive. It was mostly but playing a lot of shows, like playing 5 times in the same town in a month and playing the same set every time. And somehow people still came.
You got to have a set. Oh, they can't. Yeah, it was just
well, when you're in high school and you have a band, like your friends are all about it. They don't even so much care, I think, about like, I mean, maybe there's a select few, but people just want to go see their friends play in a band.
Yeah. I don't know if it's still like that to the same extent, but that was just like the culture that we grew up in during high school.
Back then,
it was like,
sure.
What are you going to do on a Friday night? You got $5. You're going to go to the internet cafe and see the Great Basement Crusade play the same set for the 30th time.
Yeah.
So that was the name.
Oh, yeah. The Great Basement Crusade.
Yeah. And they really did play at a place called the Internet Cafe. Basically, our whole job at that age was to go around to different places that were not venues and convince them that they were venues. Like, really, we could play a show over here. The Internet Cafe guy, I think, actually built a stage at one point, like took out half the computers that he had and just like, okay, let's do this. But going around and convincing, now it's funny to walk through our old.
But have you ever played in a Denny's?
I don't think we ever played at Denny's.
No, we played in several coffee shops though that were smaller than it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Walking through our own old hometown and just seeing all these places that are clearly not venues. Say, oh yeah, played a show there. We had
a staff meeting at a Chinese restaurant a couple months ago before all the COVID stuff happened, and it's a Chinese restaurant that it used to be the Internet Cafe, and me and a guy that I work with who was in that band, we were like standing over in the corner being like, this was my spot, this is where I played the keys.
That's great. I'm sure the rest of the people on staff were like, yeah, that's
just
cool.
like, what?
Yeah, they're used to our antics.
So then after the Great Basement Crusade, and I don't know how many people know this, but we get a lot of people that ask me now from American Arson about Good Luck Varsity, which is if you don't know, it's the band that I was in before American Arson. And I think most people know Good Luck Varsity by the lineup that ended the band that was the last 3 or 4 years or so. But you were actually one of the founding members of Good Luck Varsity.
Yeah. So after Great Basement Crusade, we kind of cannibalized that band when a couple spots opened up in your band, The Rising Tide.
Yeah.
That lasted for a couple years and then crashed, like most local bands do. You eventually flame out. And then so you and I were like, well, we still want to be in a band together, but everybody else sucks. Everybody you're in a band with, it always falls apart. So like we're going to have... I know that you guys think like, oh, Evan's a genius. He came up with this 2-person band idea. Yeah, well, Evan and I tried to do the 2-person band thing too, and
we tried it first.
Lasted one show.
Yeah, one show.
It lasted one show. And then we're like, we need a band.
We didn't have a drummer, so it's hard for people to take you seriously. And I think
just keyboards and a guitar.
Yeah, and Scott Pilgrim had just come out. The movie had just come out, and they're making fun of them. Half the movie is making fun of them because they don't have a drummer because they just use the drum machine. It's like, man, our timing was really poor here.
Yeah. So we went the exact opposite, and we said, 2-person band, that's not going to work. What if we had 6 people in a band and we just blew it up the other way?
Yeah, we were a celebration of excess at that time, I think. But we did get to...
You need 3 electric guitar players.
Absolutely. We were just talking with Jason Wisdom about that. How it seems like no matter what you have, you always want one more, right? You always, this would be really, just one more guitar part would be really cool.
Except for now, and I'm going to use Jordan's quote, you realize everyone else sucks and you just want as little people as possible.
Yeah, either everyone else sucks or I suck, one of the two. So maybe it's me that keeps blowing up all these bands.
Overcompensate for it.
I mean, everybody who's been in a band understands like the insane social... Like you go into a band usually with really good friends because that's who you make a band with, or random people that you met on the internet. And
we've done both of those things.
One or the other.
Both of those things can end up being explosive because like the idea of being in a band is awesome. Like everybody is like, that would be sweet to be a rock star, and you're gonna go on tour and you're gonna play shows and you're gonna have people like screaming for you and you're gonna make money doing something you like. And people don't realize that for a lot of bands, what being in a band looks like is being very hot, very sweaty, too many people in a small van on the road, driving through Iowa for way too long, and You just filled up the van with the most expensive gas in the world, and you got 2 hours down the road and realized that the drummer's girlfriend left her phone in the gas station. You got to drive all the way back, and now the gas tank is empty again.
And she doesn't offer to pay for it.
Shots fired.
Yeah.
Hopefully she's not listening to this.
Hopefully she is. She should feel bad about that. If you make us turn around and waste the whole tank of gas, you should at least offer to pay for it.
I honestly don't even remember her name.
I don't
either. But that's what being in a band's really like. So if you can handle that, then you can do it. So
yeah.
I couldn't handle it. So I was pretty committed to the whole band thing. I did it for 7 years.
Yep.
I actually took extra classes in high school so I could graduate early so we could go on tour. And then like as soon as it was about time to do that, we showed up at band practice one day. Evan and I showed up at band practice and nobody else did. And that was them letting us know that the band was over. And it's like, well, I should probably go to that last semester of high school that I wasn't planning on doing because I got nothing else going on. Right.
It's a pretty crazy way to let people know that you've just left the band. Just don't come to the practice that is at your own house. We didn't show up at practice at our house. We showed up at practice at one of the other guys'
Oh my
house,
word.
And they just weren't there. Yeah, I remember sitting on the curb in the street and talking about whether we actually still wanted to try to do it or not. And that was basically like the birthplace of Good Luck Varsity. And then we did get to do some cool stuff before you ended up leaving the band. We got to do some touring, and that was beyond the level that we had done before. Do you think so? And that first, we'll get into that tour, but that tour where we went out west was absolutely insane. But do you think the fact that you had come along from a very young age, or being 13 and filming it, kind of helped adjust your expectations for touring? Because I think a lot of people go out on their first tour and they're expecting 100, 200 kids at every show, and
we've taken some touring newbies out ourselves and had some very interesting experiences that I know you know about. So
right.
I was. This is the thing, like, it was still an adventure. It was still an adventure, even when you're not playing to anybody, or like there's only a handful of people there. We were still going to new places, meeting cool people, and you would always have like that one or two shows on the tour that like made it totally worth it. You ended up in some pole barn in Missouri and there was 100 people there, and you sold out of every t-shirt, and it was awesome. And it made you forget the 2 weeks where you had shows canceled and nobody showed up, and you had to try to chase down the booking agent at her house because the shows that she booked were at venues that didn't actually exist, and you just forget all of that.
It's a real story again.
That good experience. Yeah, these aren't. I'm not making these up. This is just like actual things that happened. So by the time that I was actually in a band that was touring, I had right expectations, I think, and that final tour that we went on, where we spent like a month or more in California, like all of that stuff was not a surprise to me or whatever. And I don't know, like I don't want to say like it was that tour that made me not want to be in a band anymore, but that kind of like was like the thing that's like, okay, I've done it. Like I went for like the long haul. I don't think this is like what I want to do with the rest of my life. I was also getting ready to graduate college. I was getting ready to propose, to get married. And so like it was just like a lot of timing stuff and realizing like there's definitely that like tension too. Anybody who's ever been in a band and also been in a serious relationship, of just being like, at some point you either need to like figure out how to do both or choose one. And it wasn't going to work out for me to figure out how to do both. It just wasn't going to work. So
well, and then so after leaving the band, you ended up back out west. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that time and how that kind of shaped some of the creative stuff that you ended up doing?
Yeah, so that last tour that we did up the West Coast was kind of like half tour, half missions trip, and we didn't even really realize that. So
until we got there,
a big, it's like, oh, we're gonna be doing service projects and like
gonna be hanging
preaching the gospel,
drywall,
which was cool.
Yes,
exactly. So I graduated college, got married like a week later, spent like a couple months at home, and then my wife and I moved out to Montana to do this like 6 months of school and training, and then went on a 2-month mission trip to Thailand, and then ended up coming back and working with that organization for 2 years and living in Montana and working in creative media. So my wife and I both are graphic designers and photographers and videographers. And so when we came back from that trip to Thailand, they were like, hey, you should come work here and do all of that stuff for us. And we were like, that sounds great. Living in the mountains, doing video stuff. I was about to say, and getting paid. We weren't getting paid, doing it for free, but having a place to live and food to eat and stuff. So we were like, that sounds great. And it was a 2-year commitment, which sounded like, oh, we can do anything for 2 years, until like you load up the car and you're pulling away from your family, and you're like, neither of us have lived away from home at that point. Like we both went to school at home, and we'd obviously been away and stuff, but never lived 50 hours away. So it was tough. Like as soon as we got on the road, we're like, all right, yeah, we made that 2-year commitment, and we're coming home as soon as it's over. And we ended up staying for like a couple months past it, but pretty much came home as soon as it was over, just because we both like being around our families.
So how did you and your wife both end up sort of having these overlapping skill sets of graphic design and videography and stuff like that, photography? I know she's a little bit more heavy into some aspects than you are into others, but it seems like there's such a big overlap there.
Yeah, I'm definitely more video and graphic design, and she's more illustration and photography,
Mm-hmm.
but we both do all of those things. But I think that a lot of it comes out of growing up in that like band scene. Like since she was the band, girlfriend or whatever, she got really into doing t-shirts and album art and photography for bands. Like she was doing photography for like every band in our area. And same with me. Like, it's funny. I got my real first like experience with web design was creating, and graphic design really, was creating MySpace layouts for bands.
I
If you
remember
were a band, you
MySpace
had to,
layouts.
yeah,
Yeah, it's like a skin
you
basically for your profile.
yeah. You weren't a legit band if you didn't have a MySpace layout. So I charged $35 for a basic MySpace layout, or $100 for like a custom CSS one that like had everything moved around different places and didn't look like your standard MySpace page. And so that was like one of my first like real paying graphic design band. I did like t-shirts and stuff for bands, but that was where the real money was, those $35 MySpace layouts.
Right. So for people that are in bands, there's obviously a lot of value to learning these skill sets. How do you know when you're
Yeah.
at the point where you can start, where maybe you're at the point where you should definitely hire somebody because otherwise it's going to look like trash, or maybe you're at the point where you're ready to transition to using some of your own creations? Where is that line, or how do you even figure that out?
So I think that the answer to that is you have to be willing to accept outside criticism.
Mm-hmm.
And so like if you can show something to somebody and not tell them that you made it and like ask for their honest opinion, and they tell you that it's bad, then it's probably bad. I had the benefit of starting to do our band's graphic design stuff when I was like 14. So it didn't really matter if it sucked or not because we were 14-year-olds in a band and our friends were going to buy the t-shirt. Whether like I did all of those original t-shirts for that band, the Great Basement Crusade, and even some of your band's stuff in
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft Paint. So like nobody should have been using that stuff, but we did. And I look back on stuff that I made, 15, 10, even 5 years ago, and I'm like, that's terrible. And I'm sure, Evan, you doing your own t-shirts now for American Arson, you probably look back at some of the older stuff and you're like, that was bad.
Yeah.
Just because you've grown, and anytime you're an artist and you've grown, it's hard to look back on your old stuff and accept that you weren't the artist that you are now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's songs that I wish we could just scrub right off Spotify. It's good to have for posterity, right?
Yeah. So I don't know, like it's tough because yeah, if you're in a band and you want to do your own art, you're gonna save a boatload of money.
Mm-hmm.
This is the thing I will say. Do you use your own artwork or pay somebody to use their artwork, but whatever you do, don't go on like Fiverr or one of these like websites where people are just stealing stuff off the internet and selling it for $5. Like use your own stuff or pay somebody to do it, but don't just like steal somebody's stuff or go on Fiverr and devalue somebody's art to the point of $5. Because if you believe in your band or whatever it is that you're getting a logo or a design for, you should probably believe in it more than $5 worth.
Absolutely.
That's my little rant here on
Well, and
basically the sweatshop of the graphic design industry.
yeah. Well, and you've kind of shown too that once you learn one of those aspects, it's gonna help you out in some other things. I obviously don't make music videos, but I can now put together a little ad, clip or a little teaser clip for a song that we have coming out. With
What are you talking? You just made 2 lyric videos. What do you mean I don't make?
well, okay, yeah, I
videos?
did start making lyric videos, yeah, but I would never go and shoot a music video for a band.
You're talking like the directed, like scripted style,
Right.
like videos,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Though you usually
That's a
tell us
whole
like
other-
you better come up with the idea because I just want to show up at the camera.
yeah, so and that goes back to what I was saying earlier about like I'm not an ideas person. I can make somebody's thing happen. Like if I come to a shoot, like I want you to know what's going on, and I'm gonna make it happen. But like if you're relying on me for ideas, first of all, you're gonna pay me a lot more because that's gonna take a lot of
Right.
effort. But second of all, it's probably not gonna be as good because that's not what I excel at. Like every year, I'm a youth pastor now, and every year we make like a 5-minute promo video for this big laser tag event that we have. And a few years ago, like the kids got super into it, and they're like, we're gonna do like
The Star Wars one.
the Star Wars one, and then
Yeah.
the next year we did like a
Brilliant.
Marvel one, and then this year I don't even remember what we did this year. But I tell them, I was like, guys, you have to come up with the idea, and I show them how to storyboard it out and how to like write like a basic screenplay. I'm like, you guys do this effort, and I'll come in and I'll do all of the filming and some basic CGI kind of stuff, and I'll make it look cool, but like, you know, I'm not the guy who's going to come up with the ideas. That being said, I will take somebody's idea and edit the crap out of it if I don't like it. But
So
There you go.
that's really cool that you know, now that you're kind of I guess you have a hybrid role of working with youth but also doing social media and video and graphic design.
Yep.
Do you still find yourself interested in, you know, the freelance kind of stuff, or you just we ask you to make a video so you come over and do it? But I mean, does it feel like, oh, I get this all at my job, it's not like fun stuff that I get to do anymore, or do you still enjoy doing other projects on the side?
I like never really enjoyed the freelance stuff. It was stuff that I had to do because we needed money.
Right.
Well,
fine. I guess
know.
we'll never ask you to do another music.
No. That's
Wait a
that's
second.
not
Wait a second.
that's not the takeaway. I don't like doing freelance stuff for your mom's job or what, like
Right.
some random person like, hey, my cousin's starting up a tortilla business and she needs a logo,
Right, yeah.
and you're gonna work 15 hours on it and then you're never gonna hear back from her again.
Okay.
Like that stuff I'm super done with. Working on stuff that like is fun or that like I like or for people that I like will always
not
be
American
fun.
Arson videos.
Look, I make time to do your guys' stuff because it's fun, and I don't hardly get to do that kind of thing anymore. So that is something like when I'm doing freelance stuff now, it's because it's a job that I like to do, or because Christmas is coming up and I need to make some money.
Right.
Yeah, but
So whenever we need music videos made in like October, November, we'll
well, you want to know what happened this year? You guys were like, we need a music video, and then my dad texted and said, hey guys, season ticket money is due for our Michigan football tickets. And I said, all right, Evan, I'll shoot your music video. Just send Dad the money for the Michigan tickets.
Yep. yeah. And the videos are fun, at least for like the first 3 or 4 takes. And then once I've played the song, you know, for the 7th time, and it's just, yeah, you know, and actually like yelling the words, because if you just mouth them, then everybody's going to be able to tell. You actually have to sing them. When we get to that point, it's sort of like, all right, I'm good here. But then it's always really cool to get the finished product and just say like, wow, this is awesome. And all I had to do was stand there and play the song 7 times.
Your guys' videos are always great because we've never spent more than a single day shooting a video with you guys. Like I've done videos for bands where it's been like weeks, and
man.
like you're going back and you're reshooting stuff, and like pretty much I
now
send
are
you guys.
these like performance videos, or are these like super like scripted, like there's acting parts and like you have to go to different filming locations?
Both, but even with you guys and with Good Luck Varsity, when it was a scripted video, it was still a day. We never spent more than a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just kind of, it just depends. I do really enjoy doing the videos with you guys, and even like our cousin Jesse recorded a song over the COVID lockdown about the COVID lockdown.
Yeah.
And like when I hear like somebody that I like and like I'm really invested in, I was like watching the video that he made for that, I was like, oh, it would have been so cool to like work with him on a video. And if it's like somebody that I know, like I want them to ask me to make the video with them because I want to be like a part of that.
Yeah.
Like I'm not in a band anymore, and being able to work with you guys gives me like that little bit of of a hit that I need, and then I'm like, okay, I'm good to go.
But we appreciate
not
it
be in
that-
a
You don't
tour
want to.
bus.
You don't want to come drive through Iowa and,
right. just
eat at gas
constantly
stations
through Iowa.
and
I
have
had-
in
I
and
had-
out three meals in a row. And
I had a blast doing Audio Feed Festival with you guys
Yeah,
last
that
year,
was
and I'm
fun.
always down for that. Whenever you get to like go and just stay in one spot and see like 300 bands in a weekend,
Yeah.
like that's my kind of
The tour comes
my
to
kind of
you at
experience.
that point.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciated that the Unbreakable video. We had absolutely no idea that it was going to take off the way that it did. And
I think it's almost across platforms. It's almost or it may have passed 250,000 views.
didn't expect
Ooh, there you
that.
go. So you guys are getting pretty close to being my #1 YouTube video then.
Who's your number
because
one now?
Unfortunately, it's currently unlisted because it's a video that we made when we were in high school and is not 2020 appropriate.
Okay.
Yeah, we
Oh, no.
we made all these videos in high school, like I said, like to get grades on projects.
Yeah.
And
Oh no.
just like making dumb jokes or like we made a video. It's called Seatown, and it was like a riff on what was the
Like straight edge,
the
right?
OC or what Laguna Beach. It was a riff on Laguna
Right,
Beach.
like a
okay?
straight edge
But-
version of Laguna Beach.
Yeah. The idea was, what if instead of like super rich California kids, Laguna Beach was scene kids in Wayne County, Michigan. So it was Seatown, the real WC, and like just like making lots of jokes about like emo kids. We were emo kids and like but like one of the guys is like joking about like committing suicide all the time. So it's like, yeah, this
no.
just probably isn't like it's just not funny. And like people have like real jobs and like
Yeah.
kids and stuff now, and it's like you never know what is gonna rub
Yeah,
people the
probably
wrong
better
way.
to.
So I've just
to keep
taken
it
down
unlisted.
a lot of those.
Well, and there
things.
were also a lot of
Yeah.
people who
Yeah.
got offended just about the fact that you were making fun of like straight edge and the scene and like being like you said, we were emo
Yeah.
kids. So you're making fun of emo kids, and they got really,
true,
really
like-
offended.
The second one in that series, everybody shifted from being like emo kids to being Courage Crew,
Yeah,
which is like the militant. It's like militant straight edge.
I'm
And we
straight
didn't
edge and
have
I
any
will
clue
fight
what
you.
it was. Yeah,
That was
and that's
the
all
idea.
we knew about it. We didn't know that it like we didn't like really know anything about it, and so like we made this whole video like making fun of what we thought Courage Crew was, and we got like straight up death threats, like actual death threats and messages on YouTube. So yeah, I just have taken down almost all of that stuff. It's
Well,
just-
hopefully we can eclipse that and
Yes.
take first place and actually have something
That'd be great.
that people can see and not want to start a fight. Though there are some people that wanted to start a fight about the Unbreakable video because they were very offended that we do not have a bass player. And I think that was the first time a lot of people realized that we don't have a bass player. So
Yeah.
yeah,
controversy
yeah,
just
yeah.
seems to follow you wherever you go.
Just wait till they hear the political stuff on the album. It'll be
I know,
glorious.
yeah. I was looking through some comments on your guys' most recent lyric video, and people just like to be angry on the internet. I was just like wondering, like, it must be exhausting being so outraged all the time.
Yeah, on the internet
Like, that's-
too.
Band, write a song about it. Don't put it in the Facebook comments.
Right.
Yeah, that's what you should say. It's like, well, you know, we're a band. We wrote this song, and we would love to listen to the song that you write.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Well, as
Oh,
we
man.
kind of wrap things up here, I guess if somebody really
Give us your top. Well, we have to end it on at least one, if not two, crazy tour stories or travel stories. Since you've been a little all over the place.
sure, yeah, before
Okay.
we actually wind down, give us the craziest tour story.
Or like, I mean, craziest, most memorable, whatever you want to.
Yeah, whatever happens to be.
I got two.
All right.
I got two.
Two's allowed.
And this is how you know that I was in a local band that nobody ever heard of in the states we were playing in, because both of these tour stories have nothing to do with playing a show. First one, I don't know if this was when I was like 14 or 15 or what. We're in Kirksville, Missouri. We just played like the only good show of the tour, and they're like, "Hey, you guys want to go to the elementary school?" And we're like, "Sure."
Just told my wife about
And they
this
took
the
us
other
to
day.
the elementary school. Yeah, they took us to the elementary school, where the fun things to do were climb up on the roof and walk around and pee in the air conditioner. So when school came back in the fall, the school would smell terrible. And I was like, all right, Kirksville, Missouri, I guess this is what we do for fun here.
I think I left the peeing in the air conditioner part out when I told my wife this story.
Yeah, no, I don't think that we partook in that particular ritual, but some people did.
If you see a phone call pop up on your phone from Kirksville after this comes up, just don't.
Hey, we've been wondering for the last 20 years. Why?
This was like 15 years ago, so I'm pretty sure the statute of limitations has run out on whatever that was. And it wasn't us. It was the locals.
Right, we just observed.
Arrest your own people.
Right.
Yeah. The second one would be on that West Coast tour. One of the things that we would do to get a crowd to show up, we had like all sorts of things, but one of the things we do is called the Tampico Challenge. And I don't know if you guys know what Tampico is. It's basically like Sunny D, where it looks like a fruit drink, but it's basically just like liquid sugar.
Yeah.
And the idea was you'd get some kids to come up, you give them a gallon of Tampico, and you'd say, if you can drink this whole gallon in 10 minutes and then keep it down for another 10 minutes, we'll give you $50. And then the longer it goes on, you keep raising it up to, I think like we were authorized to go up to like $500 or something.
Yeah.
But it didn't matter because nobody ever finished it, because you'd get like halfway through and you would puke because your body just can't handle that much liquid and sugar.
Yeah.
And at one show we were at, this big guy, like really big guy, comes up and he's like, I want to do it. And we're like, he might be able to do it. And so the guy who was running the tour was like, all right, you can do it, but instead of $50, if you drink it all, we'll give you a CD from each of the bands. And the guy's like, all right, I'll do it. And he chugged the entire thing of Tampico, kept it down, and he got free CDs from everybody. But everybody else that ever tried it was just instantly puke.
Yeah.
And it was awful. They would say, like, if you puke back into the container, then you can drink it again. And it's like, stop,
You can
just
continue
don't. You
drinking.
can't do it.
Yeah. I think I remember seeing like a pregnant girl one time try to do that.
We would be doing these shows outside at like skate parks, and so like the kids aren't going to come over to some like random metalcore band that's playing.
Right.
But when you're like yelling, hey, come get $50, and all of a sudden there's 30 kids there, they start drinking the Tampico, and then you launch into your next song, and all of a sudden you got a crowd.
Yeah.
We're just gonna clip that part and post it as the preview. When you're young, you say,
Yeah,
hey, come get $50, and there's a bunch of kids there.
Actually, maybe that's what the main takeaway is from all of this. If you've got a band and nobody's coming, Tampico challenge it up.
Hey, I mean, that's what podcasts do with giveaways. They're like, hey, come listen to our new episode and you could win something, and then people come and watch. Why not? Bands should do the same thing too.
They probably don't vomit, though.
We'll do a giveaway.
They probably don't vomit from the giveaway.
No, this month we're giving away a Sega Genesis Mini on Worth It or Worthless, but no vomiting is required.
Awesome.
Guys, if you're still listening, you may be able to win that Marvel game machine that
No.
behind it.
We would need a significantly larger listener base to be able to afford giving away one of those things.
All right. So as we kind of wrap things up here, what would you say if there's somebody who's just really interested in all of these different creative pursuits and wants to, how do I get started in video and graphic design and film and all of these things together? What recommendation would you give them?
If they want to be able to do everything?
If they want to be able to, if they just have an interest in all of these creative pursuits that you've been involved in and just don't really know where to start.
Yeah, I am a big believer in just do something and do it over and over and over and over again until you're good at it. I don't think that I am a exceptionally talented person. I know that I'm not an exceptionally talented person. Like every skill that I have because I've just done it a lot. I wouldn't say that I am excellent or like the best at anything that I do. I can do a lot of things good enough. And really any of these skills, if you put the time in and you just put the repetition in of, I'm just going to shoot a video every day, or I'm going to take a photo every day and get better at composition, or I'm going to practice drawing every single day, you are going to get better at it. My wife is an extremely talented hand letterer. A few years ago when that started to become popular, she just every single day would sit down and write things out over and over and over while we were watching TV. Now she has an iPad Pro with the pencil, and every day when we're watching TV, she's writing stuff. And she'll look at a drawing that somebody does, and she's like, I wish that I could draw. And I say, well, you could draw like that if you put if every day you practiced drawing like you did. When she first started hand lettering, it was like any random girl, right? Like, girls always have good handwriting, but because she's put the time and effort into it, she's good at it. And it's like the same with me with video or graphic design. Every single time I do a video or a graphic project, I learn or refine some skill. And so you really just have to put the time into it. I don't know, like Malcolm Gladwell, that famous podcast guy and other things, but he's got a podcast, Revisionist History. He has a quote saying, like, if you do something for, I think it's like 10,000 hours, you'll be an expert at it. And it's really like, you can get good at anything. You just have to put time and effort into it.
Yeah.
Which is the only way to beat level 3 on Battletoads for NES is by putting time and effort into it.
Yeah, go listen to the Battletoads episode on Worth It or Worthless. If you played that game growing up, chances are the memories that you have of it are not accurate. It's probably not as cool as you thought it was because there's no way to beat the third level. So
yeah,
I just watched an episode of the ironically called Worth It show, like the BuzzFeed Worth It show, where they did they like compare stuff like the cheap version of it and like a really, so like I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but they like basically they cover all like food, like games, everything, and they did one that was like that was a video game episode, and so they did like a $10 video game, and then like it's the most expensive one. They usually do 3, and the most expensive one was a $70,000 retro video game.
Whoa.
There's only like a few copies of in the world.
The Nintendo World Championship cartridge.
Dan probably has
Stadium
it.
Events.
Yeah, that's
Dan probably has it,
Nintendo
right?
World Championship. No. There's only like a handful of copies of those.
Okay.
Yeah. They found a place that like let them take it out of the box and play it and everything, and
Wow.
it's pretty
It's
crazy. All right, well, Jordan, thank you so much for being on with us today. We appreciate it. Where can people find the Worth It or Worthless stuff if they're interested in checking it out?
Yeah, if you are into retro video games, you can check out Worth It or Worthless wherever you listen to podcasts. Or you can find us on Instagram at WIOW Podcast, and we post lots of cool stuff, not just about the podcast. If you want to just see some fun old Sega and Nintendo ads, we got you covered.
Awesome. All right, well, thank you so much for being on with us, Jordan, and we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. See you guys.
Bye.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to the American Arson Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave a positive comment or review. Connect with us online through Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or Twitter, and check out AmericanArson.com for music, merch, and upcoming tour dates. We'll be back next week with another episode. Until then, stay inspired, stay positive, and keep creating.